Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. For the past 3 years, we've been exchanging voice notes on everything from the highs in Porto to the lows of Potter. Each week, this podcast will take you inside our unfiltered thoughts on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Joe and I are doing a live conversation today and a rare match preview, but it seemed just far too important not to. So how are you, Joe?
I'm very well, Mr. Sheen. Yeah, I think we decided about this during the week, didn't we? Because, like you say, it's a massive game for us, and we couldn't just go straight into either pain or joy after Sunday. So this is a good idea to get one out beforehand.
100%. And there's a second reason to be here, which is that we are delighted to announce that we are now, the 1905 podcast is now officially the Chelsea podcast of westlondonsport.com. So delighted to be a part of it. Thank you to the guys there, to Dave and the team for bringing us on board. And I guess to any new listeners joining us, we should do a quick intro, Joan. Tell them a bit about why we're Chelsea. So I'll go first. I am Chelsea, like many, because of my dad. He took me to my first game way back in 1993 when I was 10 years old. And I was hooked pretty much immediately. Obviously very, very lucky when I started going, because that was the era of Glenn Hoddle had just taken over as manager. We'd end up having the cup final that year and the glorious years that would follow. And my first ever game, we actually won 1-0 against Liverpool, and the goal scorer was Neil Shipley with a goal that probably didn't cross the line. But I met him years later at a pub near Wembley before a cup final, and actually had a beer with him and said, "Oh, by the way, you're a big reason that I'm a Chelsea fan, because you scored the winning goal in my first ever game." And he was actually a really nice guy, so that was a good memory. What about you, Joe?
Well, my whole family was from Fulham. Literally, my nan and granddad back onto Lewis Trust Buildings, which is on the Matthew Harding end, I believe. So yeah, I was brought up from a lifelong Chelsea fan. My nan, my granddad, my dad, my sisters, everyone has all been Chelsea fans. So my first game was in 1987. It was a 1-0 win against Leeds United. John Bumpsy got the goal that day, and I was just mesmerised by the sounds, the smells. I was quite young, but obviously as you go week after week, my dad kept pushing me under the turnstile as a freebie, because back then the ground didn't sell out quite as often as it does now. And yeah, obviously you just get that bug, don't you? And you just can't wait to go back every week. One memory I do have is my dad used to buy me a pin badge before every home game. I had hundreds of them at one point, to the point where I don't know where they even are now, which is a real shame actually. But yeah, those little memories, that pin badge program and a Diet Coke. So yeah, they're my first early memories.
Nice. Good money in those badges now, Joe. Should dig them out, find out where they are.
I know.
Make you millions. Right, so we're gonna obviously talk. We're here mainly to talk about the Forest game, because it's such a big game. I saw someone on Twitter actually say that it was Chelsea's biggest league game, individual league game, since the league decider in 2010 when we beat Wigan. And I thought it was a strong call actually, because it as a one-off game goes, it's not many seasons that you go to the final day and it all comes down to it. You kind of go back before that and go back to 2003 and the famous Liverpool game, which was obviously similar to get into the Champions League. So it feels like a huge game. It feels like a season-defining game, let's be honest, for us. And I am very, very nervous.
It's a huge game. I mean, I've not looked at last game season-ending results of Chelsea the last 10 or 20 years, but yeah, this is a massive, massive game for us. I said last week, for people that didn't hear the last week's podcast, I said that we would win 3-1 and this would be quite comfortable. But now I've seen Chelsea play Man United. We went last week, didn't we, mate? And we watched Torrick George run a lone shadow up front. It was quite hard to watch, and I do think we're going to have to come up with a much better plan to score 3 goals at the weekend, that's for sure. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game for us. But I'm still confident. But yeah, I'm like you. I'm quite nervous.
Let's talk a bit about the United game. So we watched it together, like you say, and I mean, both of us were so stressed in different ways, I think, around the 60, 70-minute mark. I mean, I just couldn't stop shouting at Maresca for not changing anything. You, I think, were just appalled basically by the performance, particularly in the first half an hour, and that really came across in the podcast last time out. What what went wrong in the performance? Because I I think after the Newcastle game, we were both quite bullish, I think, because after the Jackson red card, I think we were fairly proud actually of how we came out second half, played really well, but by far the better team in that second half, a very difficult place to play. And but for a Reece James header on target and, a deflected goal by, whereas you draw the game 1-0 and it's a fantastic result. And we felt quite bullish then going into United. And then we were looking at each other after 25 minutes going like, "Oh my God." That Harry Maguire goal goes in and we just were like, the season could be done here. What went wrong?
Well, we couldn't see we couldn't see a goal coming back for us, did we? When Maguire scored that, we both looked at each other and was like, we could be done. Like you say, we showed no signs of life. I think the biggest thing for me was we had no control. There was no control of the game whatsoever. And you want players like Reece and Colwill, players that are good on the ball. They kept kicking it out of play, and then that built in the Matthew Harding end when Sanchez was getting the ball and he then started passing it awry and the fans were getting more and more edgy and you could just sense that it was slipping away from us. I think also Maresca's inability to change things was mind blowing. And I'm in a weird way, I was thinking about this yesterday. I think you need to have a little bit of arrogance to be a football manager. And by not changing your tactics or your formation or whatever, you've got to be very stubborn and you've got to have, I say, a real level of, I know best about you. And then he will say that he was vindicated. We won the game 1-0. But what was startling, I think you and I were so vocal. Have you seen me that cross? I was getting angry. And I don't get angry at Chelsea very much. But the fact that George was just basically up front on his own, Maguire had him in his pocket, Neto and Madueke never moved. Palmer wasn't getting on the ball. That meant that when Caicedo and Enzo, which we found out since that he had an eye problem, Enzo, in fairness, which might have hindered his display, but we didn't have the control. And Lavia brings that control for us. And I think him not being on the field was a huge miss. He links balls up. He's the guy that can kind of calm it all down. And as good as Palmer is and Caicedo is at winning the ball back, sometimes you need a calm head to find the right pass at the right time when everybody's running around with their hair on fire, just someone to go, that's the pass. And I think we just missed a little bit of control. Also, just very briefly, I think Man United came with a game plan that they didn't really care. So they could have a bit of a free swing. And I think Chelsea knew the longer that game went 0-0 or potentially 1-0 down, if Harry Maguire's goal had stood, they would have time wasted even more. And they knew it would have upset our season. So I think they were quite happy that we were really struggling. So I think there was a lot of factors that went wrong on the night. But I think Maresca's, in my opinion, his inability to kind of change things was quite startling and a bit upsetting, actually.
Yeah, it was a real. I've seen a bit of stuff after the game of people saying that the players weren't up for it and there was a lack of effort, and I don't think it was that at all. There's absolutely no way those players didn't care. I think it was nerves. We were looking at them and I was like, the sloppiness on the ball, the mistakes. I think that nervous energy that very quickly then came up from the crowd, like you say about Sanchez and stuff, you could feel it. Like
Mm.
that, you compare it to a game like Liverpool where you score the early goal, you're up, the crowd are up, and it's like the energy is a positive energy. This was like felt really nervous. It felt like and because it was obviously a nothing game for United, it was almost like there's even more on it. We have to win this. This would be it felt like a gimme. And as we were, there was spells in the first half. We hardly got touched on the ball. It felt like couldn't get out of our own half for about 25 minutes, and it just built and built and built this energy, didn't it? And yeah, like exactly what you said. I think that the big frustration was I remember that I thought if we can get to half time and go in 0-0, we were looking at it again, there'll be at least one change, probably two. You were looking at it thinking, I was waiting to see Lavia come out and warm up. We were watching it, weren't we? And I was like, oh, he
Mm.
hasn't come out, but maybe they've kept him in for the team instructions. We saw Gusto having a good warm up at half time, thinking, oh, he's coming on. And then when they came out as they were, it was worrying. But we got through. We got the result. We now go to Forest. You said in the last pod that you kind of wanted them to have something still in it, which they have because they won at West Ham. How are you feeling? Because it's going to be bouncing, isn't it, at the City ground?
Yeah, it's interesting because you gave a different opinion to me, which is great, and that's what this is all about. In my mind, I was just kind of thinking, if they're out of it, they're not going to be as arsed when they play us. Europa League, that's great. We've done really well this season. They might take their eye off the ball a little bit. The more it's gone on, and obviously they beat West Ham, as we know, and now they're in it. I'm thinking to myself, this is it the City ground, Forest?
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be a very intimidating place to go, and the crowd are going to be loud. They are a loud bunch, so they are going to be pumped. I think my biggest fear, and I think we've discussed this privately, is if they score first. Can you imagine the goal that Newcastle scored going in after 1.5 minutes, and they go 1-0 up? That's going to be a problem for Chelsea because Forest do like to time waste. They don't like the ball on the field very much. And I've looked at their stats today, and that is something that they do tend to essentially, when they go 1-0 up, they are very frustrated because they don't like having the ball. They love Chelsea to have the ball and pass it all in front of them. They're quite happy to get it, clear it, go down, goalkeeper goes down, fullback goes down for an injury, and all that sort of stuff. They get involved with pushing and shoving. Before you know it, 2 or 3 minutes has gone by. When you're chasing, and Chelsea are a young team, and I know we've said this in the past, the young tag does need to go, but the right here, right now, they are inexperienced. The Man United game proved it tenfold. That nervousness that slipped into all the players, not just one or two, it was all of the players. Even Reece looked nervous, Levo Cole looked very nervous. And if we keep giving the ball back to Forest, you're 1-0 down, and Chris Wood, people like Chris Wood and Alanga, they've got lots of players that can hurt you. So that worries me that if we give them a goal, the atmosphere is going to get up. And I think I'm not sure how I feel about it. Did I want them out? Did I want them to win? I don't think ultimately it matters. But looking at it now, I'm still thinking they're also going to be nervous. They're chasing us. They have to beat us. A draw's no good for them. So they have to come out. A draw, they don't get in with a draw. We don't get in with a draw either, probably, but they definitely don't. They're a point behind us. So they have to attack us. And I think that just might, open the door for us to make some chances and actually win this game.
It's a really good point about them needing more than a point. That does help us. It's the biggest cliche in football, and I probably say it more than anyone else. We've got to score the first goal here. I think we've got it from a dad. First goal's everything.
Oh, definitely.
But since February, when we scored the first goal at Villa, and we lost, there's only been one game in that time that hasn't effectively been true. That the first goal hasn't been the most important one in all of the games we've had since then, which was when we won at Fulham. Ipswich at home we didn't, but we obviously, it was only a draw. But in every other game, the team that scored first has won the game. So with this Chelsea side, it feels so important. It feels so important on the day. Why don't we pick the team? Why don't we go through together and talk about what we would like to see in the game? I mean,
Well,
we'll
I
do
picked my
the.
team earlier ahead of this. I
Oh,
have to
okay, have you
say.
got it written down?
Well, this is a
Nice.
team I've written down. I don't know if you would agree with it, but this is what I've gone for. I've even picked the subs because I actually think that might make
Okay.
a difference as well. I've gone
Ellie
for
in goal is going to be his first
yes,
league game of the season. That's exciting.
absolutely, absolutely. So I've gone for Sanchez in goal. I've gone for Reece at right back, Chalobah and Colwell at centre back, and Kukurea at left back. I've gone for Caicedo and Lavia in the middle, with Palmer on the right, drifting in, obviously, not staying completely on the right wing, but drifting in from the right-hand side. Enzo playing as a 10, Madueke on the left, and I've gone for Neto up front. My subs bench, I put Jorgensen. I'm sick and tired of seeing 2 goalkeepers. It's driving me mad. Jorgensen on the bench, Anwi, Sancho, George, Dewsbury Hall, Gusto, Tosin, Achampong, and Guiu if he's fit. I don't know if he is, but I would definitely have him on there. Even if he was 80% fit, I'd definitely have a striker on there. I just think that against Man United, we were so our bench was so negative. There was no one to come on to change it. And I think at least with the fact we've got Sancho back because he was suspended against United, George is on the bench, and I think he's a great impact player at the moment. And I love the look of that Anwi. I know I said to you privately, I
You
love
love
him.
Antwi, don't you?
I think he's brilliant. I think he goes past players. I think he's different to what we've got. But you know what I mean? He's a wild card. And look, he probably is not going to get picked for this game. I'm sure he won't. But if you're asking me, do I want Anwi on the bench? Or do I want another? Or do I want Badiashile? No, I don't. I've got Tosin and I've got Gusto and I've got Achampong. I don't need Badiashile as well. I just think it's a nonsense. Put some attackers on there. If it's going wrong, chuck someone on another go at least. That's my opinion. What do you think
Yeah.
to the starting 11?
Yeah, I've got exactly the same 11. I think it was very strange that Tosin played over Chalobah, wasn't it? But Chalobah has to come back in. I think the only argument in my mind would be who plays up top, whether it's Neto or Palmer. And to be honest, I'd like to see rotation. I think the
Oh
big thing
yeah,
we were getting frustrated with against United is that they were static, and even Madueke, like, let all of them rotate. They can all play it anywhere across it. Let's make it difficult for them. The last thing that those big Forest centre backs are going to want is be dragged around all over the place. So I would be whoever, regardless of who starts up there, I'd want to see rotation. I think that's the important thing. But yeah, I definitely agree with the 11. And oh,
well,
it's
I'm
mad, isn't
worried,
it? Even
Chris.
talking about it. Go on.
I'm worried, mate, because obviously we said in the ground those three against United they need to be rotating, but there was absolutely no sign. Not
No.
to the point where Neto and Madueke never even crossed over. It's like, oh, I'll have a go on the other side now. It was
Mm,
so regimented and so rigid. You play here, you play here, you play here. And I said to you in the night, George was 50 yards from everywhere.
mm.
Sorry, from anybody, from Palmer, from Madueke, from Neto. He had no help. So it kind of worries me. We're picking this team here and kind of going Palmer can float here and Neto can float there. I don't know if they will. I really don't. I
No,
really
I
hope they
agree.
will, but it worried me that he was so set in his ways on that he never once changed anything. So look, we can only hope
Mm,
that they do, but I agree. I think it should be very fluid. If you've got no number 9, there has to be fluidity in that team, and for me, that's our strongest team. Neto's the experience. We pay 54 million pounds for him. You know, he's had some very, very good games for Chelsea, and when Neto is on it, really on it. He's hard to play against. Like he's as hard as anyone in the Premier League to play against when he really fancies it. Just sometimes with Neto, he goes missing. But I think this is a game that he will get his teeth into. They'll all realise how important it is. I'm just hoping the United game was the one they were nervous about, and now they can
mm.
kind of maybe they can taste it a little bit and they can just relax. But yeah, that's what I'm like you. I really wanted to see movement on Friday night, which we didn't get. Let's just hope we get some this Sunday.
I think that one of the things that has quietly happened that not many people are talking about is that, and I think it probably relates to that point about the rotation, is that since we got smashed at Brighton, effectively twice in a week, he's gone really, really solid defensively. And actually, our record has been incredible defensively since that. You know, we've had a hell of a lot of clean sheets, which didn't feel like something we could ever dream of getting loads of clean sheets. There's been a lot of 1-0s in this run of games. You've only got to look at beating Spurs 1-0, beating obviously Man United 1-0, beating
Leicester.
Everton 1-0, Leicester, yeah, exactly. You know, not what you wanted, but you get a 0-0 at Brentford. But a lot of clean sheets along the way. And I think that, you know, we look at those attacking players, things we want rotation, we want, but actually, I think a lot of that is like he wants that defensive discipline where you're going like, right, your job, you know, Madueke is to help out Cucurella to be the second player on the left, and almost I think that maybe that kind of the Italian mindset maybe comes through there, but yeah, I was going to say is I'm even just talking about it now. I've got a smile on my face, but I'm really nervous, genuinely nervous. Like, how much of a disaster do you think it is if we don't get Champions League for
Oh,
for the club?
I think it's huge. And a disaster might be a slightly. I know you're not actively saying it like it is a massive disaster, but it would be a big problem for us. I think going forward, it's not so much getting players. I think Chelsea will always attract players. They're a big club. They're in London. We've got a good squad of players. But I just think to go to the
Even
next
10-year
level.
contracts.
Yeah. To go to the next level, if you're gonna attract an Osimhen or someone along those lines, I think it's a much easier phone call, isn't it, when you say we're in the Champions League, then we're playing Europa League. I think also it's a sign that I'm not saying we're back by any means, but it's a sign you're on your way back. I mean, just on the defensive point you made earlier on, do you think we are a good defensive side? Because I think we've got quite lucky in these games. I don't think we've been
100%.
overly brilliant. We have got clean sheets, so I can't sit here and say we haven't got them because we have. But under someone like Thomas Tuchel, I felt like he knew what he was doing, and everybody. Okay, we had a different team. We had Rudiger and Christensen and players like that. But I feel as though we've got away with a few results, and that's okay because when you're building, you need a little bit of luck along the way. But I just feel like Chelsea have got a little bit lucky here and there, and but I also think getting in the Champions League and finishing fourth or fifth, which we could still do, would give the players a lot of confidence. And I think that also, to your point about being a disaster, I think it would give the players a real sense of we've achieved something this year, where maybe other people thought we wouldn't. And
Mm.
obviously, they've still got the European Cup final or the Conference League Cup final to go as well. And I think you and I aren't knocking the competition as such. Yes, it's not the best. We get that. But the players won't be thinking that. They'll be thinking this is a trophy on a European night against a very good side in Real Betis. And if you come out on the right side of that, they would have finished fourth or fifth, won a trophy, going into the World Club Cup, full of confidence. And Todd Bowley this week's come out and basically said they're taking it seriously. Now, look, that's Todd
Mm.
Bowley. He's not the manager. He's not the players. But the fact that he's mentioned the fact that Santos isn't leaving, and I'm going off point slightly here, I know that, but these all things sort of linked together is that I think it's building the club. Bowley's always said, to make money, you've got to win. Chelsea finishing sixth, seventh, and eighth every year is not going to get Bowley's return that he wants effectively. So I think Chelsea have to win to kind of fulfill some of the dreams of Bowley and Egbali. So yeah, I think it would be a huge letdown if we finish sixth here or even seventh possibly, and even miss out on the European Cup. There's no guarantees we're going to win that either. So yeah, I'm ever hopeful, of course, but it's Chelsea after all. They do let you down sometimes.
Yeah, they do. It's we messaged each other off podcast a little while ago, and we were saying that I think we were really buoyant when we had the little run just before the Newcastle game, and it felt really positive. And it's this thing about Chelsea, I think, this current era where you're so close to being very optimistic because you see people like Santos doing so well and coming back to the club. You see Esteban William, for example, coming in, and you're like looking at the squad building around the World Club Cup and thinking, wow, we've got so many good players. We did a squad, obviously, preview episode for next season about a month ago. And I think a few people messaged us and said, oh, God, we've got a really good squad, actually. And you think about the players that you could sell that would bring in the money and you're looking at 3 or 4 ingredients and you can start to feel very, very positive. But as we felt on Friday, like if it goes the other way, it feels really negative again. So it's like, it's never felt more like the tipping point is so fragile in terms of, the pros and cons. But
Well, there's no
yes,
chance.
it's
This is
massive.
last chance to lose, isn't it? This is last chance.
Yeah,
There's no like, oh, we've got another game to maybe pull ourselves out of this. This is it now. We said, didn't we?
100%.
We don't want to bore people with this comment. We've said it. Both said it a couple of times. If we could take our destiny in our own hands against Nottingham Forest, that's what you want. Because if we were sitting here on 65 and Forest were on 66, and we'd be thinking we need to win, and Forest, obviously Forest would lose, and Villa need to lose, and Newcastle need to lose, and you know what I mean, like all these sort of things. You think we don't want
Mm,
that. At least we have, destiny in our own hands, and I think that's all we could have asked for a few weeks ago when it looked a little bit dodgy, didn't it? Particularly when you lost to Newcastle
yeah.
as well. You think, oh no, if we don't get a good result against Man United, it could be really against us. But we have come through it. We've had, say, some really good Okay, again, not amazing watches, but we've had some very good results recently. Um, so we've kept ourselves going, and I think when was it Levi Colwill said we needed to have like 6 cup finals or whatever. To be fair to Chelsea, they have won all of them bar Newcastle, so they've done ever so
Mm,
well. Yeah, it's just you're just hoping there was a bit more experience in the team to kind of, a team huddle or a team meeting, or what are they saying this week to each other about winning this
mm.
game? Do they know what it means to the club? Do they know what it means for their own personal contracts? Does Cole Palmer and Enzo and Caicedo want to be playing Europa League next season? I would have thought they want to be playing the Champions League and getting the adoration of all around Europe, and not just what Man United and Tottenham are doing tonight, and no one really cares about it. So yeah, I think it's big for Chelsea and their players as much as it is for the club.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think it's one of those, isn't it? Because you go to Forest and you go, it's a tough game, but you also go through their 11 as it comes up in our 11, and you probably say how many of their players we get in our team, and you're probably saying 2 or 3 max, and we like the centre backs, probably like the goalkeeper, but there's not many. Hey, it's Chris here with a really quick message. Check us out on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. You'll find video clips, photos, and much more about everything we discuss on the show. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch, to tell us your thoughts, share your feedback, or just say hi. Follow us on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. And now, back to the show. And I thought it was interesting. I wanted to wrap up with a couple of quick fire points to get your thoughts on, actually. One was Jamie Carragher, our favourite. I feel like he's got more anti-Chelsea in the last year or so. But he not only said that we won't win it for us because we haven't got the character, but also did. I mean, him and Gary Neville and many others have done their team of the season recently.
I saw this.
Casado's not even getting a mention, and it's they did, I think, one on the overlap where they were like, okay, 6 best midfielders, and he named, it was like 2 Newcastle midfielders. It was like, I was like, how is Casado not in the conversation? Have they not been watching him? To me, it was insanity,
I
frankly.
saw that
And
clip. Weird, I've seen that today, mate. I put it on when I came in from work. I was just intrigued. I didn't know their team. And yeah, Tonyali and Guimaraes and 1 or 2 others was in there, and I was like, wow. I mean, the people that watch Caicedo regularly will say this guy is incredible. I mean, what strikes me as weird is that what have they been watching for? These are football people that supposedly are on Sky Sports and TNT and everywhere else. What are they watching? I just don't understand it. I really don't. The fact that Caicedo's name wasn't even mentioned, like as a backup, like I'm going to put
that's what I
Tonyali in,
mean. Yeah.
but but it could have been Caicedo. It was like they're coming up with like 4 other people that it could have been. You're like, what? Cucurella as well, never mentioned. That was I thought that was really harsh. And Kirkez I think was in both of their teams, and fine, he's done really well for Bournemouth. And Neville made a good point. He wanted to give Bournemouth some flowers, if you like, but for sort of saying that they've had a good season and they probably deserve to have someone in their side. But that shouldn't be just that's it. I don't know. I just found that very, very strange. I mean, I agreed that Palmer. I don't think Palmer should have been in it personally, because I think he's done, even though he's played very well. Obviously, his numbers haven't been as good as last season, and there have been some great players in there, like they had Salah in there, for example, and Isak. That's fair enough. But I just thought, like you say, to not have Caicedo of all people, not even mentioned, I just found that
Mm.
incredible.
Yeah, same. What I got 2 final points. Okay, so we both think we'll win, right? We won't change our prediction. We both think we'll win
No,
on
I'm not changing my
Sunday.
prediction. No.
No, who's going to be the hero? Who do you think is going to be the player who steps up and wins us the game? I think we both said 3-1. So who's going to be the man? Is it going to be Palmer's day? What's going to happen?
I think it's well, not saying this is going to be the match winner, but I think Reece has got a big part to play in this. I think his actual captaincy, he gets a lot of stick, Reece, for being a bit passive, maybe. Is he a leader? Is he vocal enough? I think you're seeing it from him. I think you're seeing lots of, like, for example, Enzo will come over to the referee and start giving him an earful, and he pushes him away. Go away! I'm talking to him. That's happened. I've noticed this. Well, he hasn't played every game, I know, because he's been subbed sometimes. But when he's on the field, I think he's really taken the ball by the horns. And I also think it's quite difficult for him when he's not starting every week to kind of be telling everybody, I'm in charge, almost sort of, well, in charge, but I'm in control of this ship. You do as I say when you're not playing every week. But I think now he's getting a bit more game time. I think he's getting his confidence back on that front. And I think, yeah, as you saw, all right, he didn't have his best game against Man United by any means, but there was moments of quality. The shot that he hit against the post, which was incredible. That the assist for Kukurea. And there's one or two other little moments where you just thought to yourself, okay, that's a calm head. That's a player that's won something. He understands what this means. He's Mr. Chelsea. He gets us. He gets the crowd, and us as fans. I think he's got a huge part to play. And if you remember last season, it was his cross for Nicholas Jackson to win the game.
Unbelievable.
And all right,
Yeah.
I'm not saying history's going to repeat itself in exactly the same way, but I think Reece has got a huge part to play. I mean, you mentioned Palmer. Palmer's not scored a goal from open play. Oh, wait, what is it since January, December time? He scored a penalty against Liverpool, but I don't remember another outfield goal. It's been a long, long time. You're just thinking, surely you got to break your duck at some point, and what a time to do it. And it's those two in midfield. I think if Caicedo and Lavia play, I think they've got a huge part to play in the game. I just think they need to control it for us. We lost all control against Man United. It became like a basketball game, up and down, up and down. You have a shot, we have a shot, sort of thing. And even though Man United's chances weren't necessarily leading to many shots, they were kind of getting up the field, and we were having to kind of drag the ball off of them because of time wasting and all that nonsense. I feel like against Forest we do need a sense of control, and I think that will frustrate Forest because, like I say, they need to beat us. A draw's no good, and I think if we can keep rotating that ball round and getting on it and giving it to the right players in the right areas, I think eventually they'll crack. And I think, okay, they beat West Ham, but West Ham are dreadful. They really are poor. I mean, I know a lot of the sides they've had against recently have been poor and they've lost or drawn, but I think Chelsea will prevail, and I think it will be. I said 3-1 last week. I stand by it. I think it could be scruffy at times, but yeah, fingers crossed. I think we've got enough in the tank to pull this off.
Going to be 3-1, and the goal scorer is going to be Cole Palmer, Reece James, and Enzo Fernandez.
Oh,
you heard it here
love
first. I'm feeling
I'll take that.
bullish because I predicted 1-0 against United, so I'm feeling really overly bullish now.
Yes, you did.
Okay,
you did.
And then a final thing I wanted to talk about briefly, because it's kind of a little bit non-Chelsea, but it's Chelsea related eventually, is I went to school in Croydon, and so a lot of my mates are Palace fans. Lovely area. But yeah, I've got a lot of friends who are Palace fans. And I don't know if you felt this. Again, I think you probably have to know if you Palace fans to have really got it. But the FA Cup final on Saturday was such a throwback for me of what football is really about, and seeing the reaction of the fans who, I mean, for Palace had never won a trophy, ever. And to see the reactions of so many friends that I know, watching their reactions videos, saw a couple of mates the next day, they were just in disbelief. I never thought they'd win anything. Like to have this moment. And you know what? There's, of course, I'm Chelsea biased. Of course, but first of all, I'm a football fan. And I actually thought there was a real magic to it. And the thing that I was saying to my friend Mark, who you know well, Joe, I think he's going to join us to watch the Forest game actually on Sunday, was, and because he was, I've watched it back, I've watched the whole game back, I've watched every single bit of content. I was like, do you know what, mate? And I've been telling him, I was like, that will never end. I promise you, that will never stop, because I'm still watching everything from the 2012 Champions League final when it comes up. I mean, yesterday, this is not a joke, I watched Gianluca Vialli's pre-match interview against Bayern Munich when we played them in 2012 on the pitch for Sky. It just popped up on Twitter, and I was watching Vialli talk about how Chelsea could have a chance against Bayern Munich if they kept it tight. And I'm like, what am I mean, watching it like all these years on, or for me, it would be Middlesbrough 97 would probably be the other equivalent, obviously winning the FA Cup for the first time in my lifetime. But I sort of said to him, it will never change. It will never not be amazing. Like those players will be immortal for you forever. That memory, the date is actually the the 17th of May. And I said to him, that is, I mean, not giving much away, I've changed it now, but that has been my password for so many years and different things, because it's when we beat Middlesbrough in 97, the 17th of May, 97, like these things that stick with you forever. And yeah, it was just kind of a reminder, I think, of like, of course we're biased, of course we want our team to win, but we're football fans, and it was, to me, it was a nice day to see a team win the FA Cup and really care.
Yeah, it was a true underdog story, wasn't it? It was not. I mean, Palace have got a very good side. Actually, I was going through it with my mate because, well, Anna's family, my wife, they're Palace, so
Oh,
they
I
were
didn't know
obviously,
that.
yeah, so they were ecstatic, as you can imagine. And I've got quite a few friends that are Palace fans, I must say. Not, I've not spoken to all of them, but the ones I have done, as you can imagine, like you said, they're just cock a hoop. It's just they didn't think they could do it. I think all the talk was beforehand that they had a chance against Man City, but I don't think any of them really believed it on the day. Um,
Mm,
but as that game went on and on, you just felt that something wasn't going to go right for City. Then they obviously
mm.
a handball outside the box that wasn't given as a red card, and they missed a penalty. And you're thinking, oh, okay, I've seen this happen before.
It's
Um,
2012, wasn't it? It was like, it had that Munich feel about it, like it's written in
yeah,
the stars kind of vibe,
it
wasn't it?
did, didn't it? But I must say, I mean, again, seeing Newcastle win the League Cup, Palace has won the FA Cup. Like, there's been some different winners of trophies this year, which has been, I think it has been refreshing. Of course, we want Chelsea to win them all, but if you can't, I think it's nice that some other teams have had some success. I think it's good for the league, if anything. I said that Palace team, you go through it, is that there's a lot of good players in it, like really good players in it. And, I've mentioned Eze on here before. I mentioned him a few months ago. I'd love to see him in a blue shirt next season. I think he's probably too old for us. He's probably about 27, which is way too old. But obviously, our old player, Mark Gurhey, and that Wharton's a fantastic player, Mateta. You go through it. There's some really, really good players there. But, they still needed some luck on the day. And it was nice to see Pep, lose his cool. And I think one thing about Pep that we've discussed, together, is that he's all right once he's winning. He'll pat you on the head when you're winning and say you're a brilliant side. But the moment you start getting the upper hand on him, he goes very quiet and gets quite aggressive. Well, sorry, not quiet, but he doesn't talk you up so much, and he gets quite aggressive towards you. He'll start saying things like, they do this or they do that, and it's always in a negative way. So it was nice to see him get very sour at the end to Henderson, who gave him a bit back, which was good. But yeah, I agree with you, mate. It was nice to see them win. It was let's say, a true FA Cup love story like you used to get years and years ago. So yeah, I think it's definitely brought the love for the cup back. If that doesn't do it, then what will?
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I thought Pep was a bit pathetic, to be honest, at the end. I thought that was really, I mean,
He could
he
have
got
chosen
10
Bray,
minutes
couldn't
injury
he?
time. Yeah, he got 10 minutes added on, like, just I think the way he wins is almost even worse than the way he loses, because when he wins, he's, like, almost patronising, going up to, like, do you remember, like, he beat us 1-0 at Stamford Bridge and went over to Christensen and, like, was, like,
Yeah,
in his ears, and you had a great game, and he loves doing that sort of thing. You're like,
yeah.
"Just fuck off, he's our player, like, go and, yeah, do your thing." And then when he loses, he's completely gone the other way, so
Roy Keane
anyway,
hates.
yeah, rightly so,
He
rightly
hates
so.
it. He really. He said if he said before in many a game like that he's watched, that if Pep came up to him and told him how well he played when they just lost 1-0 to him, he would have punched him in the face probably.
I mean, I would pay a lot of money to see that. Right, we will be back to reflect on the game on Monday, and I guess reflect on the Premier League season and see
I've got
where we are. And
I've got one
yeah,
last question for just one last question for you. We didn't touch on it because it possibly could be Sancho's last game for Chelsea. He might play in the final, who knows? He might play in this game, who knows? But do you think he has a say in it at all? Obviously, he's playing for his Chelsea career in a sense. Do you think that he plays in this game at all? And will he be motivated to kind of, if he has a very good game and Chelsea win, or he scores or assists, and that gets Chelsea in the Champions League, do you think that will sway the owners or the manager to buy him in the summer, or do you think he's out on his ear?
I mean, he's on our bench probably, isn't he? So he's on the bench, he could have a part to play. I think it's all about, I think it's levels, isn't it? Of where do you want to get to? We've been quietly linked this week to Rodrigo at Real Madrid,
Mm.
who likes playing off the left. It's his favourite position. Real Madrid potentially would be happy to sell him because obviously they've got so many players now in these positions. And you kind of compare him and think, yeah, if you got him, if you brought Rodrigo in, it's going to cost you a lot of money. You might have to break the wage structure, but you go, the idea of having Rodrigo on the left, Palmer in the 10, and then the likes of Esteval and Neto on the right and Madueke, you are now serious,
Oh,
really going
superstar
up.
team.
Yeah. And if I sort of with Sancho, I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. But then am I excited? That day that we share on our little Chelsea WhatsApp group that Chelsea have said, oh, Sancho deal completed, 25 million. What's our reaction? And I think my reaction is like, makes sense
Meh.
financially, but not like, yeah, a bit meh. And I'm like, I think the game actually might affect it, the result.
That's what I was going
Weirdly,
to say. Yeah.
I think if we get Champions League, I think we probably don't sign him.
Mm.
I think if we get Champions League, we do. Because I think it's almost like if you're playing Europa League next year, you probably go, yeah, Sancho makes sense at 25 million. It kind of makes that decision for you. Whereas if you get Champions League, you're probably going, nah,
We need something better.
let's go and get Rodrigo, or yeah, I can dream, but yeah,
I just thought it was worth mentioning.
I think we said I don't not like him. I think he's a good player. I think he's shown signs, but he's one of those. Bit like João Felix, put him in a different league, he could really tear it up, but Premier League,
Yeah, so he shone in the Bundesliga, didn't he? And I think like a lot of players
yeah,
do, that come from there, they will shine and they come to the Premier League and they're a little bit underwhelming, I suppose. But yeah, I thought he was worth mentioning. But yeah, this could be his last Premier League game for us potentially.
he could. And to be fair, like, honestly, I'd certainly not look at him if he did go and think anything but it was a good signing. I think it was a really good deal. And
I agree.
especially if we get Champions League, I think it would be like work really well. I think you'd look at it and go, he definitely impacted enough games, particularly earlier on when he really got a lot of assists. You're like, yeah, good signing. So I think it's such a big game on Sunday that the way you'll judge everything, certain players and decisions will be different. Like if, Sanchez was to leave in the summer, you'd kind of look at him and go, well, he did all right in the end this season. We got, you'd almost
Yeah.
be like, you'd forgive him the faults and you'd be like, he did okay. If we don't, you'll blame him. You'd be like, it was a disaster. He's the reason we
Oh,
didn't get Champions League. So
exactly.
it's
It's a real sliding
it's
doors
such a
moment,
fine
isn't it?
line.
Your view is so different, isn't it, when these players leave? He'd probably
It's
leave a hero, Sanchez. He'd come back in
yeah,
3 years, someone
it
you'd be
can.
like, "Oh,
It's
Sanchez."
throw his gloves into the crowd. We'll be happy. So, we'll take him off you. Don't wear him again for us. But yeah, it's such a fine line. But we'll be back on Monday. I'm fascinated to see what mood we're in, and then we'll preview obviously the final cup final of the season against Real Betis. Oh, Joe,
With a
I'm
with
nervous.
a with a definite Champions League spot secured. You
Yeah,
heard it here
lovely.
first. Right. Cheers, mate.
Okay. Cheers, mate. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you
Take care.
soon. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.